Right, as a general rule, though, where do you often see businesses, though, if we come back to this whole idea of the startup for a moment? People have great ideas, they want to go to market, but where do you see these businesses in the early stages often miss the mark when it comes to value?
This is an interesting one because again, in conversations with early stage startups, there's a tendency there to wire the part of the brain that a business owner has already wired themselves, which is, I look around at the world, I see a problem, I have conceptualized a solution to that problem, and I believe that there's a gap there and an opportunity for me to be able to build that into a business. The danger to that is that you get fixated on what it is that you're building. You get fixated on the object that you're creating, as opposed to stripping that back to what it was that you saw originally. So when you talk about that value piece, constantly, I guess, working to be able to bring it back to people and problems, as opposed to product and process and logistics and mechanics, will always give you that lens of being able to have, referred to as empathy or compassion, but that view of a world outside of what you're creating. Because the worst thing you can do is get so absorbed in your brand, get so absorbed in your business that you forget that your brand and business doesn't exist if it doesn't have a customer. So looking at people and problems first, and then bringing that into what it is that you're doing as a business, I think that simple exercise of pausing, taking the time to reassess it, and not just once. This is something, the reassessment required now is something that people are going to need to do again in 3 months as we start to see what that looks like. And again, 3 months after that. So that dynamic nature of keeping and maintaining a focus on value as it exists for your customer is such an important part to both existing business and new business.
Expanded viewpoints and filters around this concept of value, right? Because tangible value is that value language of business, but what you're describing, people, that's emotional, that's service, that's relationship. Problems is specifically part of the model of that service relationship. So it's really making sure that you're looking at a broader picture. As you're talking to that, it made me think about one of my favorite expressions, which is that the longest journey in this world is actually the journey from the head to the heart. Right. And what I mean by that, it's actually learning to filter the ideas that you have, to not be attached to specific mechanism or product, and be willing to adapt it. As an author, they call it, a friend of mine taught me years ago, be willing to let go of your babies and edit out some of the content you want if it doesn't serve the purpose. And it's the same with the business. We can get so attached to the idea. That's what you're describing. We're going to learn to filter that from the journey from the head to the heart and be really a bit more real with ourselves. Does that sound pretty much what you've been describing?
The challenge you're describing there is a universal truth, because the reality is, as a business owner, I haven't seen one successful business yet that doesn't have a level of passion and almost unreasonable logic that you apply to that risk assessment of what your business means. I think if any of us are going to be honest with ourselves, there's the obstacles in your way to creating a successful business are vast and varied. And it requires that unreasonable expectation on yourself and your abilities to be able to push through that, which requires that passion and connection back to what you're trying to achieve. If you get stuck in that world, you tend to then forget the other pieces that sit around that, which without the combination of the two is impossible to offer tangible.